So I want to go over the biggest financial mistake that I've made as a 25-year-old. But before I go into what I did wrong, let me set up a scenario that might sound familiar to you. You're probably in your mid-20s, you probably graduated college recently, or you're about to graduate college, because that's the main audience that watches my videos. But you finally get this good job that you've been waiting on for years and years, this thing you've been studying for. You finally got that dream job that you wanted, and you're making pretty good money. Maybe at this point you're living by yourself, maybe you're living with your parents still, maybe you have an apartment with some roommates. Regardless of what the fact of your living situation is, you're making pretty good money. And you're not really sure how to spend it. Maybe you're saving some, maybe you're investing some in your 401k, maybe you're having some fun with it, maybe going out with some friends, doing some cool things, taking some cool trips. All is good and well. But you're tired of driving the car that you've been driving since you were in high school. You want to get an upgrade. Now, this makes sense. Maybe it's a beater, maybe you've put some money into it. Maybe you just don't trust it to get you from point A to point B anymore. It's totally understandable. I was in a similar situation to this when I graduated college. I was lucky enough to be passed down, and we got a really good deal on a Ford F-150 that I ended up driving for about 3 years or so. It was a 2011 Ford F-150 Lariat, so it kind of had an upgraded trim level as well. The inside had that like wood paneling, it had leather seats, heated and air conditioning seats, heated steering wheel. It was great. It had a backup camera. It was awesome. And personally, I like driving a truck because I do things like hunt, and it's just a lot better to put that kind of stuff in a truck bed than in the back of your car. You don't want to get like ticks in your car or anything. So having a truck is not a necessity for me, but it's definitely a nice to have. And now being a homeowner, having a truck is almost an invaluable tool because I'm constantly going back and forth to Home Depot, getting appliances, getting wood to do projects around the house, getting gardening stuff for things around the house. Now, sure, I could rent a truck every time I needed it, but I think at that point it just makes more sense to have one. Now, sure, I don't need it. I could have an SUV. I could have had anything, but that's where the story comes in. This Ford F-150 required some work. It had been sitting still and idle for a long time, and it was constantly having some maintenance issues. I put $4,000 into the engine, and then I required another $4,000 to fix some things on the truck that were going wrong. I'm not a mechanic. I don't remember all of the details, but it was something to do with like the steering mechanism, and there was this weird thing happening where as I'm steering, the truck's kind of like lurching back and forth. It wasn't a great situation, but regardless to say, I spent $10,000 on the vehicle originally, and within the first 3 years of owning it, I had put another $8,000 into it. Now, some people at this point would just completely give up and get rid of it. Now, that's kind of what I did. So I went shopping for a new vehicle, and I wanted to stay with a truck. I wanted to keep it relatively low miles. I definitely wanted to buy used, not new. And I found a pretty good price on a Chevy Silverado 1500. It's a 2021. It was listed at $31,000. Now I go to trade in my vehicle. I think there was some still existing maintenance issues on the Ford, so I ended up getting, I believe, $8,000 for it. And all in all, I think I ended up financing around $28,000 to $27,000, somewhere in that range. I can't quite remember. I do have the numbers for the actual loan, but only current. But I don't remember the original financed amount on the loan, and I can't seem to find that anywhere. But really, for a truck, it's a relatively good price, $31,000. However, what I didn't realize was the downstream effects of owning a vehicle that costs this much, especially when I was in the middle of getting ready to get married. Didn't know it at the time. We were going to be having a kid within the next year. We're going to be buying a house as well after we get married. My wife also got a new vehicle. There's all these compounding things that at the time, it didn't seem like a terrible idea. And it was definitely something that I could afford on the salary that I was making, especially since we were living with my in-laws. However, now that I own a house, I have a kid, I'm married, my wife has student loans, and my wife has a vehicle as well that we're also making payments on. I'm realizing that a $500 a month payment is not something that's really helping us out financially. On top of which, I work from home. I'm not driving typically during the week, maybe just to the grocery store and back. So, let me go over why this is the biggest financial mistake, what I could have done differently, and what you should keep in mind as you're getting your new job and you're making that adult money that you've been waiting for. All right, so here's the numbers on my loan. I took out a 6-year loan at $28,000. This was my first mistake. 6-year loan, don't do it. I did that to keep monthly payments low, and I knew I was going to be paying ahead, which I have. I currently own $17,000 on the loan. I paid back currently $10,000 of the loan, and I think I've only had the truck a little bit over a year, which is definitely more than what the minimum payments would have been. So currently I owe $17,000. However, 6-year loan, you're really just extending that period you have it, so you're paying more and more interest. The other interesting point, no pun intended, was a 7.99% interest rate, which is probably average for the time I got it, but it is not good. That is not a good interest rate to have. In comparison, my wife's car, which she just got this year, has a 2.85% interest rate, which was definitely a special through the dealership, but she's going to be paying a lot less interest on her vehicle over the entire loan length, which again was only 3 years instead of 6. Now, sure, since I'm paying ahead, I'm not going to feel all the effects of that. I'm not going to have paid all this interest. But with these numbers, if I was making minimum payments over the lifetime of the loan, I would be paying an extra $7,500 nearly in interest payments. So that $31,000 vehicle really is closer to a $40,000 vehicle when all things are said and done. Now, with all this being said, now that you've seen the numbers, you know the situation, you kind of know where I'm coming from, I hope. Do I need a $31,000 vehicle as somebody who works from home and hunts during the fall and is a homeowner? No, I don't. So, here's what I'm doing, and here's how I'm trying to mend my mistake. The good news is that I paid ahead. The vehicle itself is probably still worth about $28,000. I haven't put that many miles on it. It's still in great condition. And great news, I'm ahead on my loan. A lot of people in the United States are not ahead on their loan. They're actually behind on their loan. Their loan payoff amount is higher than what the vehicle's actually worth. I'm not in that situation, thank God. I'm not underwater on this loan. So I could sell this and walk away with probably $8,000 to $10,000. That would be great. Then I could take that $8,000 to $10,000 and get a different vehicle, maybe a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit older, maybe not a truck, maybe an SUV. And then I could maybe owe $2,000 to $5,000 on my vehicle at this moment rather than $17,000. This helps us pay off the other vehicle. It helps us pay off my wife's student loans. And it just puts me in a lot more comfortable of a position, especially since we just had a kid not too long ago. My wife isn't working at the moment, and we're missing out on that part of a household income that we normally are used to. We're kind of feeling the pinch right now. So, if you're in this situation and you're looking at vehicles, think to yourself, do you really need the fancy new vehicle that you want? Do you really need that $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 vehicle that you're looking at? Or can you get by with the vehicle that you've used since high school? I'm not saying to never upgrade, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't upgrade right now. But do you really need the vehicle that you're looking at? I fell for it. I'm willing to admit it. I made a mistake. And I knew it at the time that maybe this isn't the best idea. Maybe I could have stuck it out with the F-150 and put some more maintenance into it, and it would have lasted me, years to come. I don't know. But I'm trying to mend my mistake right now by downsizing, getting something cheaper, and not having a car payment. Because at the end of the day, you're driving something that it's not going to last forever. With something like a house or buying a stock, sure, it could decrease in value. It could die. The company could go out of business. The housing market could crash, and you can't sell your house for pennies on the dollar of what you paid for it. However, with a vehicle, the moment you drive it off the lot, it's lost 5% in value, 10% in value. If it's brand new, maybe 25% of value in the first year. The numbers on a vehicle just really don't make sense in terms of an investment point of view. So unless you have the disposable income to basically waste on a vehicle, it's not a great idea. You're going to severely handicap yourself from being able to afford a home just because the monthly payment on top of your mortgage, you're not going to be able to save up for a down payment on a house. You're not going to be able to save up for a wedding if that's something that you're looking at in your near future. And plus, when it comes down to it, the vehicle's really just a thing that gets you from point A to point B. Sure, in the case of maybe an SUV or a truck, it has some utility as a homeowner or a hunter in my case, but I don't need it. It sits out there. I'm pointing where it sits. It's over there. I hardly ever drive it. Now that we have our kid, we're always driving the newer SUV that my wife has because the car seat fits in it great. It's a safe vehicle. It's not going to break down on the side of the road. Not that my truck will, but that's the vehicle we're primarily using for getting our kid around and getting ourselves around. And really the truck is only there for when my wife and my baby are somewhere else and I need to go somewhere, or I'm hunting, or we're picking something up from Home Depot. So let me know what you think. I talked about this in my last video, but I want to go more into personal finances and things because data analytics, I don't know, I'm tired of talking about it. And sure, maybe you're thinking like, yeah, shut up, idiot. You bought a $30,000 vehicle and you're feeling the effects of that now. I know, I made a mistake. And I'm here trying to be honest that I did and hopefully keep you from making that same mistake. So let me know what other types of questions you have. I'm thinking about making a video where I'm ranking all of the worst financial decisions you can make in your 20s. And if you're interested in that, let me know. Other than that, thanks for watching, and don't buy that new vehicle if you can't afford it.